Thank you so much, Nicolas, for joining us here on the We Don't Play podcast show today. How are you?
Good, thank you. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so good to have you here because a lot of people talk about email marketing, and we've had a lot of episodes on email marketing. But I know that one of the big things that people need to learn about is email deliverability. Because if I have a package and I'm waiting for my package, it doesn't come to my mailbox, then I don't have the package, but it was delivered, but it's not in my mailbox. So same when you send an email and they don't receive it because it's in the spam, there are things that people have to look at. So I'm excited that you're here today to at least help us know what the best way of doing this is and helping us avoid mistakes that can be very costly for our business long term.
So first of all, email has changed a lot in the last few years. Not only with AI, but like 5 years ago, you used to send a newsletter or business emails, and that was it. Now, if you're sending business emails and you're doing like a bit of sales outreach, you're going to send the same message to 50 people, which is kind of seen as tiny newsletters. Same thing with newsletters; they tend to be now heavily personalized. So how do we split? So my point is all of those categories that used to be different is now the same thing. So email deliverability is a work for everybody, like a stir. So we're Inbox Booster is a company dedicated to fixing deliverability problems, and a third of our customers are just sending regular business emails. So that tells you kind of how bad the situation is. And why, and one interesting question is why is that? But it's also, that it's kind of a daily struggle for everybody. Everyone needs to check to keep their email deliverability in check, and you need to monitor it. You need to use expensive tools for that, but you need to do that. Otherwise, it will not work.
This is about to get heavy. Before we even get too deep, I want people to know about you. And how did you even get to this point where you're doing this for so long? You've been doing this for about 15 years. How did you start? How did this get started?
So I started kind of a little bit by accident. What happened is I got hired at a not too good job. I was studying at the same time. And they needed me and they had an email problem at that company, like they were sending emails as business, as part of their business. And I was playing part-time there. And the teacher in my school was the guy who built the spam filter for AOL. And so he explained me how that works. And then from that point, I was kind of seen as a savior in that company, which is cool because I was really working part-time, and then I could actually study and not work very much and get paid because I understood how the thing works, so so it was not like an hourly based pay. It was really just a couple of things I knew that were very valuable for them. And after that, I basically created a company in that space. We were just sending emails, and so I kind of got in. Really by accident, and then I stayed in this because it's a good field and it's interesting.
I'm laughing because you said you got in there by accident, and now 15 years later you're profitable as a business. It's so interesting how life works, that you can be in something you didn't expect, and now all of a sudden you're teaching other people how to do it. This is big.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is important. Actually, it has more depth, I would say, than it looks. What I believe is, what I've seen actually, is that people actually like plants. So that what matters is the environment around you. And if you're in a bad environment or not too good, you're not going to grow as a person as much as you can. No, we're not plants, so we can change the environment when there's a problem. And if the environment is good, you can stay in it, you can experiment and all that. So it's kind of half random because, as you pointed out, I got in randomly, but I got into other things randomly. But this is one of the things I kept, and I think it's probably the same for you. It's the same for you, and I think people underestimate a lot, especially actually in the US. I would say is. The weight of the environment and how sometimes you need to kind of change context to grow, which is still unrelated with email.
That's true. Okay. Now it got me thinking about deliverability. Could you walk us a little bit through that? How does someone have a high email deliverability rate, and what is that percentage?
Okay, so first of all, you should not think about percentage. This doesn't matter because it's really so some providers like Mailchimp and all that will give you this kind of thing called deliverability rate. It doesn't matter in today's world. What matters is to get into Gmail or Outlook or some enterprise spam filters. But most of the time, your deliverability rate, for instance, on Mailchimp will be high, even though you're going to end up in spam or promotion on Gmail. Also, that's the first thing. So it's not really a metric. Also, you should look at it on a percentage-wise because unless you're a really, really huge corporation, it doesn't matter. What matters is you have a problem or not. Like if I'm sending an email, is it in spam or promotion by default? That's kind of how most people should start. And you shouldn't go further because either you have a really big problem you need to fix, or maybe 10% of your emails will be in promotion. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. And it's actually even for the kind of greater good, I would say, that it happens. So I wouldn't care. So the first thing is really to kind of look at these things in a binary fashion. Do you have problems? Yes or no? And that's kind of how you should look at it. Second thing is, how do you know you have a problem? Because that's actually not that obvious. Because what will happen is if you send an email to yourself, let's say you're on Gmail, Gmail is going to be smart enough to figure out that you want to receive email from your own newsletters or for your own business accounts. It doesn't mean that's going to make this decision for everybody else. So this is a lot more. So you need to test. And there is a couple of ways to do it, but you absolutely need to test. Depending on how often you send emails, I would say at the very least once per month, maybe once per week. But you need to spend 5 minutes making sure that your emails are in inbox. And the way you do it is you can use my tool inboxbooster.com, which is free for that. There are a couple of other tools doing it, but you need to pay for that. So this is why I think ours is better. Also, I built it. So the second and the other way you can do it is you can create yourself a new account. So you create a test account on Gmail, and you send yourself an email, and you'll see if you're in spam or not. This is what we're doing behind the scene with our test tools, which is why it's easier for you to use because we're going to make sure that this email address hasn't been trained by your previous emails and all that. This is why you want to use us, but you can do it just like that. And that's enough. But if you don't do that, you have no clue if you're ending up in spam or not. The third way to do it is what people say is what used to work, which is to check your open rate or your click rate and see if you have a big drop. If you have a big drop, this might mean you're in spam, but again, it's a guess. Maybe simply that the copy is bad or something's the wrong people. You don't really know. So this is why what I do recommend is to test, again, depending how often you send, but between once per week to once per month to check that you're in inbox. Of course, this is a service we're selling for customers, so they don't have to do that themselves. But if you can do it yourself, there is no reason you need to pay us. You can totally do it yourself if you want. It's just a matter of how do you want to kind of set up your business process.
Okay, thank you. I know about a tool that's close to this, and I don't know, maybe you would know about it, called Mail Tester.
Yeah, of course. So Mail Tester is a good tool, but they're not going to tell you if you're in spam. It's free too, that's correct. I didn't mention it. The reason I didn't is because it's not testing on Gmail and Outlook. It's just going to tell you if your email if like your configuration is well done, which is useful. But you can have a really bad configuration and still be in inbox and on Gmail and vice versa. So it's actually more like almost a debug tool, I would say. While ours is really more for marketers because we're going to tell you really like, okay, you have a problem or you don't. Mail Tester will tell you, yes, your DNS can be a little bit better configured and all that. Your wording can be a little bit better and all that, but it's guesses. They're not going to really tell you what Gmail and others think about your emails. It's still useful, by the way. It is useful, it is meaningful, but it's not going to test your emails properly. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I see. Okay. So...
And we built our tool looking at Mail Tester, to be clear, and looking at all the flows that it had, because it's a free tool, and trying to figure out how we can build something that's really useful like Mail Tester, but much better.
Okay, because I've been telling my audience about Mail Tester, until you came and I'm hearing about Inbox Booster. So I think I might switch it up a little bit and let more people know about this platform, because the reason why a lot of people don't get results, especially small business owners, is because they send emails with their providers. Either they use Aweber, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp. I think Brevo. Yeah, they used to be called Sendinblue, but they're called Brevo now.
Yeah.
We use Flowdesk. Some of our clients use Klaviyo. I mean, the list is endless. You know, they're all good, but we don't know what's the best option, and we also don't know if our emails are being received, because we can get, so it says delivered, but we don't know if it's delivered in the spam or delivered in the primary inbox.
And the problem we found here is, like the problem is these companies like Klaviyo, Brevo, MailChimp, they all say they have good deliverability, but the truth is they don't really care because it's not their job. And also, if you look at a company like, so Brevo used to be one of our customers. So if you use, I actually have two stories for that, two anecdotes.
Okay.
The first one is, in a company like Brevo, it's probably going to be 1 to 5% of their customers are going to be in spam. So it's not a huge problem for them because they don't really care. It's because they work with small businesses, so they don't care too much. They pretend to, but they don't really. And this is why we're here. And we're actually fixing that problem for them. And they don't necessarily want to partner with us because it would create too much support for them. This is what we've seen with MailChimp, with Klaviyo, and all those customers. And so there is no business case for them, which is kind of a little bit ironic, but nevertheless, it is how it is. The second thing is MailChimp, for instance, that you mentioned. So we used to work with Y Combinator, the famous startup incubator, and they were in promotion. They use MailChimp for their newsletter, and they were in promotions, and in spam on Gmail. And the reason, so we fixed it, and they got plus 35% clicks after that. And the reason they were in spam is because they imported the base template from MailChimp that were sending them to promotion. That was not the only problem. They had a secondary problem afterwards, which was that you needed to fix some that they were sending to people who were not engaged, meaning they haven't opened their emails in the last 10 years or even clicked on the link, so they should be proved. So the problem is MailChimp cannot tell you that because that's not their business model. At some point, especially if you're a small business owner, you need someone to tell that to you, or you need to write blog post, and you need to write diagnosis tools, and they don't have that. And my understanding, and this is just my understanding, is they don't want to have it because this would kind of overload their support. This is why we're here. And another way to look at it is for some customers, being in inbox is important, but for a lot of other customers, it's kind of not that important. So this is kind of a nice to have. So this is kind of the reason they don't do it, I guess. What I know is it's important for our customers, and there are a lot of them, and we're trying to kind of service everybody, especially small business owners, so they can get their information at a price point that makes sense, meaning free in 90% of the cases.
Okay. Do you think Flowdesk is a good one?
They're all good, or they're all equally bad, if that makes sense. If you're in spam, it's not. It could be because of them, and then they're doing something wrong. But most of the time, it's because of what you're sending. So so you need to kind of rework. So either it's because of a specific word that you put in your email, and that has nothing to do with you, and it's kind of like collateral damage, you just need to fix it. Or it's because the way you're sending are a little bit too aggressive with your emails, and the spam filter doesn't like it. So what Inbox Booster will tell you is really, okay, this is because of that word, it's because of a copy, so we can tell you which words precisely create the problem, or it's because of your past behavior and the type of email you're sending that needs to be resolved. And then we provide documentation so you can do it yourself, or ask us to help you if you need. But the goal is that you can do it yourself for free. This is kind of what we want things to work. This is how we want things to work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a good thing, because if you explain to small business owners why they're in spam, then they're going to stop actually. Usually they're in spam for, again, I think 40%. They're in spam because they've been too aggressive. So if you explain that and you kind of give the rules of engagement to these business owners, then they're actually going to be more careful and they will not be in spam, and that's kind of a virtuous cycle.
Okay. Now I got a question. I got a question now.
Personally.
The question is, how important is it for you to look into text only and image heavy emails when it comes to deliverability, especially for products and services? Should you do less text, more video, more image, less text? How should it be?
So it has so on Gmail, I assume because Gmail is for small business owners is probably 90% of their traffic, 80% of their traffic. And this enterprise spam filter, like if you sell to Fortune 500, it's a different breed, so it's a different beast. You need to handle it differently. But if you just send to Gmail and Outlook, it doesn't matter. It's really the user reaction that will matter. You can send just one image and be in primary inbox, or you can send a very good text to ratio thing. It doesn't matter. This is an old thing. This used to be this is an old rules of like 20 years ago. I can show you an example where I can just send an image and it will be in primary inbox. It's not relevant. It's the importance of text, on the other hand, of the text version is say you're checking your email on your watch. That will be actually what's going to be displayed, or the small preview snippet that can happen with Gmail is going to be taken from your text only. So that's kind of what you need to work on. But that's kind of the only thing. So my recommendation is usually, if you're not sending to a very technical audience, I just would be careful. So I would be careful. Do I want to support like Apple Watch or Google Watch or this kind of things? Otherwise, I would just send an HTML only version. Because it's easier to monitor. It's not because it's better, but it's really because it's easier to monitor. Because usually when you have deliverability problems, they can come from the text version or the HTML version. And right now, everybody's supporting HTML. Like even my washing machine can display HTML pages now. So it's not relevant. The HTML, the text version thing, it's actually it's something that happened. Like I think email. So email is 6 years ago. It's 6 years old. So they had this thing where you could send only text email, because the HTML, I don't even think it existed at that time. So that's why they had this text version, and then they added the HTML. But now everything is HTML, so there is no reason to do it anymore.
Okay.
And the text to ratio and all that, this is not going to be the problem. If you're in spam, it's even if you saw like just one image, probably not that, but it's not going to be the problem. The thing here is the more information you provide to the spam filter, the more they can make a good categorization. So for instance, say you provide just an image, they don't know what's in it. Say you put a lot of text, they can categorize it correctly to the right box.
Oh, so Inbox Booster, as we're speaking, I'm actually signing up. So, because I want to definitely test this out, because we send a lot of emails to our clients and our prospects too. So you're saying that if we use Inbox, like I was mentioning, Mail Tester just shows you this is what's wrong, this is what's happening. Now, you're saying that Inbox Booster tells you change this, move this up, like it gives you a better layout?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, so we're not, so first of all, to say the first thing is we're going to tell you exactly where you have a problem, so you'll know where the problem is coming from. But it's not a guess like Mail Tester or the others. It's not predictive. It's basically what we do is we take your email and we're going to kind of cut it in lots of small pieces, and we're going to send those small versions to the spam filters to know what's triggering the problem. So for instance, how do we know we have it's a process I invented and patented, but it's basically it took me a lot of time to figure it out. But what we're going to do, for instance, is to know if you have a reputation problem, we're going to take your email and we're going to send it through another sender of ours which we know has a good reputation. So if this one is in inbox and not the other one, then we can conclude that it's a reputation problem while you're in spam. So we know that you need to improve your delivery practices, and then either we talk together to kind of figure out why, or you read our blog post and you figure it out. But that's kind of what's required. And what's important is this is an information that Google is telling you, or Outlook, like, hey, you really need to step up a little bit here, or we'll be forced to put you in spam. That's kind of interest. That's important for you to know. And now, if it's a content problem, like what we call a content problem or a DNS problem, we'll be like, look, we know you have a problem here. You need to fix it. And we know this works, so we're not going to improve the layout. But what we'll say is, those HTML tags create a problem. So you need to remove them or change them. But this is because we're not able to, or those words in the subjects are sending you to spam. So you need to change them. And the way we do it is we've changed them and we know you're not in spam.
What about emojis? Do they have any impact on you getting it in the primary inbox?
No, so the way spam filter works is not. So I'm going just to talk about Gmail here today, for small business owners. Again, that's what matters. It's different from others. But for Gmail, the way they do is they receive an email. So there are kind of three spam filters in there. The first one is a security spam filter. So like say you're trying to send an email pretending you're PayPal. I'm not going to talk about that because I assume that's not what your audience cares about. And you shouldn't have any problems there. If you do, they're usually easy to fix, but they can be pretty bad because it's a false positive. But then you need someone like us or another to help. And most of those problems can fix themselves after a couple of days. Paying someone will just make it faster. The second thing is they have a global spam filter and they have a personal spam filter. So the global spam filter, what they're going to do is they're going to look at kind of the aggregate of the reaction of all the recipients and try to decide if it's an email that people what they want to receive. So how do they do that? We don't really know, but they actually have the UI. So they know who's clicking on the email, who's opening it, who's deleting the email without opening it, who's just skimming through it. And they have a lot of information who's answering these emails. And from that kind of thing, they can make a decision. And this is an AI who's kind of learning all the time. So at some point, they'll kind of aggregate it into kind of some rules like, hey, if there is an emoji, this probably is a good quick predictor of spam, which used to be the case. But after some time, this rules kind of stops after, let's say, 24 hours, and they reset the rules and they try to find another one. So it's more complicated, but that's just to kind of give you an idea. So you have rules like that, like the emoji, but they work for just a little bit of time, like a couple of weeks at most. After that, they don't matter. It doesn't matter. Which is why what we're doing is we're really checking what the spam filter thinks all the time in real time to say, hey, this is working right now. And kind of the example is before you send your campaign, your email will be in inbox. After that, if you send really bad email, it will be in spam. So that really means that they've evolved their rules. So this is kind of what you want to figure out and you want to fix. And so all of those like emoji, text ratio, and all that, they don't really matter. They're true for a couple of days or a couple of weeks at most. Again, it's not true for enterprise spam filters, but for Gmail, this is kind of how it's working. So you don't want to work it out. And even some rules that we found that are that we've put in the software. So, for instance, there are a couple of DNS settings that we enforce because we know they're creating problems. It's from that reason, it's because they found out that the spam filters say, okay, if you have these DNS settings, it's a likely predictor of spam. So everybody that doesn't have it is probably going to go through the inbox. This is true now. This might not be true in 2 months. So nevertheless, this is a good setting. That's why we ask our users to deploy it. But it's still that kind of thing. So you see, those rules are evolving all the time. So you cannot kind of have a kind of a set in stone type of rules. They're going to evolve, and you need to be ready for that. Now, in practice, this is why you need to monitor all the time, or at least once in a while. And this is why, but usually you'll have a problem once per year or every 2 years. This is kind of what we've seen. If your email is important, you'll have a problem every 6 months. If it's like a main driver for your business, and if it's like a newsletter you send once in a while, it will be once every year or once every 2 years. Which is why you really need to monitor. And this, at some point, you'll need maybe to send a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. Maybe change a couple of words, and that's why it's kind of a recurring process. But it happens once in a time, once per year, basically.
Nice.
So,
okay. What about the number of the number of not emails, the number of links? You know how people just put links.
Same thing. Let me give you actually KPI that matters. KPI that matters are you want to be under 1.5% of a subscription. So if your average, it really means you're sending an email that people don't like, and this will create problems. So you want to be over 0.5%, because if you're not over 0.5%, this means that you're not very aggressive in the marketing department. It also means you're in spam because you're sending emails to sell, or to share something, usually some people will not want to receive that. So if you're underneath that level, this usually means you're in spam. That's kind of one counterintuitive metric to monitor. And if you're over it, this also means that it's usually not sustainable as an email practice. If you're over 1.5% on an average basis, this means you will end up at some point in promotional spam, because usually this means that your users don't like enough your email. That's kind of that's really the metrics you should monitor. So that you shouldn't hide your subscription link or anything. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, so you're referring to the click rate, right?
No, the unsubscription link. Like really, you have an unsubscription link at the bottom of your email, and that's what you need to monitor for deliverability purposes.
Oh, so if you have a lot of unsubscribes, it means that your emails are being delivered.
They're being delivered, but they don't. But the spam filter will take actions at some point.
So should you aim for 1 to 0 unsubscribes?
Above 0.5 and under 1.5%. In between 0.5% and 1.5%. Like say for instance you have 5%. Say you're sending average email and you have 5% unsubscription rate. This is unsustainable.
So let's say I have a 2,500 list, and I get like 2 or 3 unsubscribe, or maybe 10 really.
Yeah, 10 is kind of borderline okay if it's one email, but if you have 10 in average, which is 2%, this is too much.
Okay, I see. So that's why it's good to segment your emails.
Yes, exactly, because you want to have your engaged users, because they will. So this is a proxy metric. It's not, but it's kind of working pretty well, and it's telling you if you're going to have a problem or not. It's kind of a good predictor. And so if you do that plus test again on the user, then you should be within the good. You should not have any problems. But sometimes you'll push a little bit too hard. Sometimes it's going to be something that has nothing to do with you and all that stuff. But if you kind of keep within those metrics, it should work.
Okay.
And you should have not too many problems.
What's better, links or buttons?
Same thing. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So it's really a user reaction. So when you ask this kind of questions, you're really asking. The real question, you should try to take a step back, and the real question is, what do users prefer to click on? And this depends on which users. So sometimes they prefer buttons, some other times they prefer links. So it's really depending on your user base. What you want is to have the highest click rate and the lowest unsubscription rate within those metrics.
That makes sense.
And that's how the spam filter will judge. So everything is going to be a consequence of that. So you want to, so that's your goal. Your goal to have the highest CTR is in marketing is kind of obvious. The non-ambitious goal is really to keep in check your subscription rate.
That's a good one.
And if you do that, you should be fine. And that's kind of what they're looking for. So they're changing these metrics, your mileage may vary and all that, but that's kind of where you need to check to keep that in check. And for Gmail, this is kind of the most important metric.
Nice.
And open rate is not reliable also in Gmail. So some people, some ISPs were going to kind of measure it. The problem you have is when you're on mobile, they're not going. So what happens is when you receive an email on Gmail, they're going to download the image the first time. So you have to. So some providers are going to remove it, but you're not going to. Some others will not. Some others will try to remove it. So it's kind of a guess. And second problems they're going to have is if you're on Outlook, or they're going to under-report, they're not going to display the image. And so a lot of people have a privacy protection system, are going to remove those images. So you don't really know that you're, so the open rate is not very reliable as an indicator. It helps, but it's kind of a qualitative indicator more than a quantitative one. So for instance, people checking click-through rate, which is really the percentage of users having clicked who has opened, is not really meaningful here. It's better. It's too brittle as a measure. And an example here is if you move from one provider to the other, you'll see that your open rate will change significantly.
Will it change for better or for worse?
It depends because they just come differently. It's really they count differently. They have like different sensitivity almost to what's considered as an open or not. So it's not very easy. It's useful for me to know if you have a problem, but it requires a lot of interpretation. So it's really better to just look at the click rate.
This is good. This is good. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm now saying that I should be looking at my unsubscription rate more than my open rate and click rate. Just
look at your click rate and your unsubscription, but not too much the open rate.
Not too much the open rate. Okay. I'm gonna try it out. Yeah, go ahead.
And after an email delivery or before you're going to send a campaign, again, once per week you need to test the campaign to make sure that you're hitting the inbox. As I explained, either by doing it through Inbox Booster or doing it yourself, but you need to create a test address each time. Otherwise, your test addresses, they will learn and they will understand that they want you to be in inbox. So so just testing is hard, and you really do kind of two pillars, and then you should be fine.
So testing is also a good thing, because if someone doesn't test their email and just send it, even though they've proofread everything and they don't test it, are they losing out because they didn't test it first?
Yes, because the problem is when they to check their click rate. So there's two problems here. Assuming you don't test, you're going to send an email, and assuming it's going in spam. So you're going to go in spam. You don't. So then you cannot do damage control after that, which is really what our customers are doing. I will point out.
Yeah.
But then you're going to do damage control. You'll be like, oh, I have a low click rate. Why? Then you have to use our tool to figure out why. But it's too late, because sometimes you've lost your campaigns because you've lost your email. You cannot really send it again. And also, sometimes it's used sometimes it's going to create the problems. And by testing, you can figure it out a little bit earlier. So that will help. Another thing you want to do if you're going to send a big campaign, speaking of that, is you want to sample. So say you have a 500 list, but let's say you have a 100,000 user list. And you're going to send the campaigns to all of your lists, because it's very important, because you're going to announce a new release or something like that. What you want to do is to sample. So you want to send it on 100 people first, just to check if your unsubscription rate is working. Because you'll see if you have problems with the unsubscription rate here, because you might have, say, 5 unsubscribe on 100 people. Usually there is a problem. So you also want to sample and test, and send a small sample to test the metric. You will not know if it's working with that, because usually it's you will not send too many people, to enough people, but you will know if it's not working. So those are kind of the 3 techniques you need to use. So the first is really test. 2, check your subscription rate on a regular basis. Test on a regular basis too. And 3, for very, very important campaigns and the one that needs to work, you can use a sample of your users. Anything above 50 people will tell you if your campaigns will have a problems.
Wow.
Because you see your subscription rate going off the roof, and that's a problem.
Yeah, because even sometimes, like, you can have somebody in your email list, but they are bouncing.
Yeah.
So do you take off the bounces, or do you?
Yes.
Okay.
You need to take them off, but that's done automatically by your providers. And on Gmail, unless you're really sending to a lot of bounces, it doesn't really matter. So your rate is not really important for Gmail. Now you still need to take them off.
Yeah, I know.
Let's say you have 5% bounces or something like that. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Because sometimes when people have bounces, either they didn't pay for their domain, or something's wrong, or they're not able to reach, and you don't want to lose them, because you know that their bounce might come back. They might bounce back, but it's also hurting your business because you're not getting the full scale.
Yes, but usually it's because the email address doesn't exist. So they're going to tell you that on your ISP will tell you. So it's not a big deal. So it's fairly simple to figure out, and they will tell you what to compare.
Okay.
So they will remove it. And you should check them a little bit. But most of the time, it's simply because the recipient has moved on to another email address or another company or something.
Yeah, and that happens.
And it's normal, and it happens. Like depending on B2B or B2C, but there is a lifespan attached to the email address.
Okay, now it makes sense.
So you want to kind of know that at some point you need to remove it, and that's fine.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much, Nicolas, for helping us today. on this show. You've brought so much value, and I feel like a lot of people who are running a business, they need to send emails, but they don't know how to send good emails that reach the inbox primarily. And using Inbox Booster, I'm already in. I'm going to test it out today, and I have an email that I'm planning to send out to my list because we have an SEO course that we released, and released it a month ago, and a lot of people flooded in last week in our promo deal, and I have some bonuses to share with them. So I've been wanting to send an email, but for some reason I was just waiting, only to realize that while I was waiting is because I needed to talk to you first so that they can also learn from what you're telling us so that we can look into it. Because for me, I've never really thought about unsubscriptions. I always think, okay, unsubscribe, delete. But I never thought to actually look at the number and then find the percentage to know whether it is above 1.5%. And even 0.5% is so specific. So I didn't know that, and I appreciate you for bringing that to our table today.
Oh, I'm happy to have helped, and again, it's really why I actually went back into that business. It's because I felt that the playing field is a bit unleveled in favor of big corporations for sending emails, and it's kind of the only free network. So, like, it's not that you need to pay a gigantic corporation to work there, to use it. So by extending those rules and being very open about it, then I feel that people will send better emails, and everybody will win out of it, like recipients, mailbox providers, and the senders.
Exactly. Awesome. I would love people to connect with you, work with you, get to know more about you. How can they get in contact with you?
Inboxbooster.com. There is a link where you can book a meeting with me at any point in time, and they can use the tool and give me feedback if they. I would love feedback, and they can give me feedback if they do.
Nice. I will give you feedback because I'm going to test it today.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicolas. Till we meet again, God bless you, and I appreciate you for being here and looking forward to having you back.
Thank you very much. It's been awesome for me too.
Anytime.